this tank is going to dish out tons of damage to the opposing army and just kill them very, very quickly. And once it learns siege tech, it's going to be doubly dangerous as a defensive tool, because it won't even have to be here. It can be over here where it's completely out of range, and they can just bombard enemy units and start walking up this ramp. So here comes the attack. I'm going to slow it down a little bit, because this is something that the computer did that was rather stupid. And that is, it approached my base directly from this angle right here, and my ramp is right here. Like, it's very predictable for your opponent to have units here ready to defend. So if you try to attack, if I were to try to attack his base, I'll point this out, but you don't want to approach at this angle. You want to go around and approach from the bottom of the ramp, so that way you can actually get in there and start hurting him. Because my opponent does not have vision of this area up here at all, because he's still stuck down here. Until he gets vision of this area up here, the stalkers, which are ranged, can't start shooting back, and they are at a severe disadvantage. They're just going to get pummeled until they die or retreat. So this is it from the perspective of my opponent, and after a few moments, he very wisely decided to retreat, because there's just no way he was going to win. I mean, even if he can't actually see and target what's up here, he can guess, you know, he can see that there's a tank here, he can see there's some marines. It's probably more than his zealot force can handle, especially because you can very reliably predict that your Terran opponent will have a wall off. Like, there's really no reason for a Terran to not have a wall off, unless you're playing a Terran versus Terran, but I'll get into that later. So he's cut down to size, and look at what's happened in that whole time. Even though I was distracted by this attack up front, I've been keeping up my macro, making sure I'm building SCVs, making sure I'm building, using my money. I'm spending it on making another command center so I can expand eventually, which I end up not needing to do. I'm making marines out of my reactor. I'm making marines out of my other barracks with a tech lab. I'm making another tank. Siege tech is research, so this tank can go into siege mode. I'm making sure I'm not getting supply block at this point. And my gas is staying very low, because I've only bothered to get one gas. Actually, I got my second gas already, but it was delayed, as opposed to my Protoss opponent, who has gotten his second gas fairly early but is not making use of it. Look at this pile up of minerals. 1,610 minerals, 308 gas, but he's only at 27 supply. Just looking at the supply, let's look at the harvesters up here. He's at 15 harvesters, I'm at 26 harvesters. My income over here is double, more than double of what has going on right now. So from an economic standpoint, I have greater production value and a greater production potential and greater stability in my income than he does. So I mean, I can just throw down like 1, 2, or 3 additional barracks and start producing out of those barracks and these 2 barracks I already have and this factory, and I'd be able to support constant production out of all of them, just because I have so many workers here gathering resources for me to keep spending. Whereas as opposed to him, where if you look down here at his base, he has only 1 gateway, and with 15 workers, he could probably support 2 gateways. He can support 2 gateways, but he's not even building out of that 1 gateway consistently. Or maybe he is. But the point is that he's not spending his money, so he doesn't have an army to match what I have and what I have coming. Because at this point I have a constant production of units. Like, every Marines take about 25 seconds to train. Tanks take about 45 seconds to train. So on average, for every minute in the game that passes from this point onward, as long as my production is consistent, I'm going to have at least 6 or 7 new units every minute or so. And if I ramp up production by throwing down even more barracks, it's going to be even higher than that, as opposed to him, where the fastest unit that he can train in here is the Sentry, which is 37 seconds. And so with just 1 gateway, he cannot keep up. He really needs to be spending that money, and he just will not be able to have an army to fend off my attack when I set to counterattack in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and lower these supply depots here in a second. Now seriously, let's take a look at the army value tab. Where is it? No, that's not what I want to do. I want to look at the units. Okay, so these are all the units that are on the field right now. My opponent has 15 pros, 3 zealots, 1 stalker, 1 sentry. This is 5 combat units total, as opposed to my 1 siege tank and 9 marines. That's 10 combat units total as compared to 5. 3 of those which are melee, by the way, so they will get pummeled before they actually start doing damage. So when you consider this with what he has coming up, let's bring up the production. He's producing 1 sentry. I'm producing 3 Marines and 1 tank, while he's producing his 1 sentry. I'm outproducing him by 3 units. So even if if the current force that I have wasn't overwhelming enough, it will be, just because he's not producing units. He just cannot produce more units because all he has is 1 gateway. And look at this, once again, look at the minerals. He could throw down, at this point in the game, you've piled up this kind of minerals, you might as well just use them. I would throw down maybe an additional 3 or 4 gateways just so I can start producing crap out of him. And I would have not stopped making pros, because look at my income. Look at our incomes right here. I am earning double of what he is. And, you know, just do the math yourself. I'm gonna outproduce him in every sense of the word. I mean, right now I have a slight advantage, a significant advantage, but it may not seem that amazingly great, but it is a significant advantage this early in the game. And it's only gonna get worse for him just because he's not keeping up production. He's not making more workers, so his income increases. He's not making more gateways, so he can keep spending that money that he's getting. He's just falling behind because he just isn't spending that money. He didn't have a very good build order, you could say. No, come on, stop freezing up. So what I'm trying to say is that whenever you're playing the early game, make sure you're always building in such a way that you're spending your money and maximizing it, and you're not getting stuff that you don't need. For example, this engineering bay that I got, I didn't get it earlier than I needed. I got it when I started having spare minerals and gas, so I could actually research and upgrade out of it. So now my infantry has infantry weapons level 1, so they do extra damage. So let's look over here and look down here. You see the 1 underneath the gun. That means they have an upgrade. So they do 7 damage now, as opposed to, I believe it was 5 damage that they normally do, 5 or 6 damage. Regardless, when you 1 point of damage may not seem like that much, but when we have this many Marines, we're talking like we have 9 Marines here. Each of them does 1 additional point of damage, so that's 9 extra points of damage per attack turn that they have, so to speak, if you want to talk about it in more RPG-like terms. So I'm just not spending money arbitrarily. I'm spending it where I need it, or I'm spending it as I get the luxury to be able to spend it. But I always make sure I have units to defend and attack, and I'm always making sure I'm making more structures to build out of. Look, there's the other 2 barracks that I was talking about, and even without them, I'm doing a fairly good job of keeping my money down. At this point, I did stop producing workers. I want to point that out. I knew that this was a medium computer. I knew I was really far ahead, so I got careless. I got careless between knowing that this was going to be an easy battle, and also the fact that my opponent, and also the fact that what was I going to say? And also the fact that I got caught up talking to you as I was playing the game, so that way you'd be able to understand what I'm doing. So I do want to point out that it was a bit of a fail siege here, because I was supposed to siege up right around here, and I tried to move like right to the bottom of this ramp, which gave him the opportunity to move down and attack me. Like, he can see this at this point. He can see this. Look at that. Just at the edge of his vision, he can see the tank moving into position, and that gave him the moment to, and since he sees that this tank is not yet in siege mode, this is the only moment he has to retaliate and maybe survive. Because as soon as those tanks go into siege mode, they're going to start dishing out a lot of pain. So you want to make sure when you give yourself a good opportunity to siege up, because it does take about 4 seconds for the tanks to transform from one mode to the other, and during that mode they will not be able to move or attack. So because I sieged too late, I sieged in an inappropriate position, my opponent managed to come down and start dishing out damage, which ends up killing the first tank. But the Marines do manage to protect the other tank, and I do manage to quite a bit of damage. The other cell is going to go down, and this siege tank is going to keep bombarding. I want to point out the splash damage. Holy crap, has my volume been that high the whole time? Okay, it's only at 30%. Okay. I want to make sure you can hear my voice. I'm going to lower it a little bit to 25%. Anyways, the tank does splash damage, so when units are clustered close together to each other and the siege tank is targeting any unit in that cluster, they're all taking damage. So all these units here are just getting decimated by the siege tank. And now that that's over, walls up here, there's nothing to defend. There's that one lone stalker, but that one lone stalker is not really a match for 4 Marines. And as soon as the siege tank moves into position, it's going to make it even worse, because it's just going to start shooting freely. By the way, I want to point out that unless you tell your siege tank to attack a very specific target, it's just going to pick its own target and start attacking. So because it sees the buildings, it's going to start attacking the buildings, but the moment this The moment that enemy unit comes within range, the siege tank will automatically redirect. Whoa, that felt weird. The siege tank will automatically redirect itself to hit the enemy's unit. See? It's gonna attack the building. It's gonna attack the unit. It's gonna attack the building. It's gonna attack the unit. So you don't have to worry about telling your siege tank to automatically attack enemy units once they come within range. They'll automatically do it. Now, what I would have done to improve this is I probably would have had the siege tank target fire the pylons. Because if you take down the enemy's pylons, it's like it's like if an opponent came into your base and took down your own supply depots. You know, he's gonna get supply blocks, so he won't be able to build units. I mean, I guess it's not really a concern that he gets supply block because, I mean, he's got all this money piling up and, you know, he's way behind in supply. He wouldn't even get supply block if I took down 2 pylons at this point. Oh, and if you saw that right here, I want you to know that your siege tanks can hurt your own units. If an enemy unit is right beside your own units and the siege tank targets that area, your own marines will take damage, which is going to hurt quite a bit because siege tanks are particularly useful at killing marines and other light units such as the marines. So you want to make sure that whenever your siege tank is fighting, you're trying to keep your marines out of harm's way. I'm constantly trying to micro them back and forth here. And the rest, as they say, is history. I mean, you can definitely see that I'm going to win this battle. You can see that even if I lost this battle, I have all these production facilities back up at home. I have 3 barracks, 2 factory. I have an expansion ready to go out. Maybe I haven't been using it the whole time. Eventually, you're going to want to get to the point where while you're down here taking care of this, managing your units, you're using your hotkeys. You know, I could have been pressing 6 and then producing more marines and more tanks consistently. That way there is another force of units already up here ready for whenever I decide to either retreat or moving on down to reinforce this area. My point is that you want to be able to